All right, great. Daf Yomi for our month is sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Gotta say those words right. Mr. and Mrs. Moshe and Susie Feder, Ili Nishmas, Mrs. Feder's father, Simcha Aryeh Ben Yosef Tzvi Zichron Levrach was your site was on the 17th of ER. Daf Yomi for the week is sponsored by Rabbi Greenwood and Jeffrey Wald in honor of my father's 80th birthday, which was good. I should have be gesund and stark ad 120. And Daf Yomi for the week is sponsored by Reb Aaron and Evelyn Kislasi. Aaron's father Shmuel ben Yaakov Zichron Levrach, whose yard site is on the 13th of Sivan coming up. And Daf Yomi for the week is sponsored by my father in honor of his friends Yehuda Greenwood and Jeff Wald.
With love.
And the rest of the Kila. Isn't that amazing? It's great. It's beautiful. It's Baruch Hashem. It's great. It's wonderful. Okay, so we are on the Daf of Lamches Amud Aleph. This is the late edition. Yeah. If last night was the late edition, this is the late edition due to meeting. So this will be a slightly shorter share, but we'll at least cover our Daf and we'll see. Okay, so we are in our Mishnah. Mishnah says, Shevuos haPikodon ketzad temli Pikodon sheyesh li biyadcha. We have had many Mishnayos that have similar. We've already gone Shevuos HaEdus, the oath of testimonies. We've talked about Shevuos HaBitui, and that's the oath where we're swearing to do things, not to do things. So we've got this idea, this concept. Now that we're up to Shevuos Pikodon, the Shvuah of me denying owner that I have an object that belongs to somebody else. We've got the ideas basically similar, and we had a similar phrase in our Mishnah, which basically says that if I summarize my denial in one complete statement like I deny it everything, then I have violated one oath. But if I deny in parts by saying I deny that part of what you said, I deny that of the part of you said, each one can be its own separate prohibition of an own separate oath. That's what we said. So Tana Rabbanan, our rabbis learned, Klau Eno Chayev Ela Achas, right? As we said, that if I generalize my oath and I include everything, I say I don't owe you anything, that's one violation. Prat, if I specify everything, you said you owe me that you have my lost object, you've got my stolen object, you've got my loan. You go through each one of these things. Then I say I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have that. So then each one you're chayv kol achas v'achas. Tiv Rabbi Meir, that's what Rabbi Meir said. Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says, and this is where it gets a little technical, Shvuah lo lecha velo lecha velo lecha. Let's say now there's a group of individuals, and each of these people say that I have an object with you, I have an object, you have an object with you. So now we just said that if I specify, Rabbi Meir, so I specify, so then I'm going to be liable for each one. If I generalize, I don't owe you guys anything, that's one. But now, says Rabbi Yehuda, if I specify, I don't owe you, and I don't owe you. Right? Now the key is velo, to note the velo. I don't owe you, and I don't owe you, and I don't owe you.
Who are you
so,
again?
huh?
Who
Yeah.
are you again?
Chayev al kol achas v'achas, that's going to make you liable to each and every one. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer says, lo lecha velo lecha velo lecha shvuah. He has to make the statement, I don't have to you, and I don't have to you, and I don't have to you. As an oath, then he's chayev al kol achas v'achas. You're going to be liable to every single individual one, right? You've got to make the mention of the oath at the end of the statement as well to be able to make clear that you are swearing to each of the items. Okay? Rabbi Shimon says, you actually have to specify that it's an oath in every one of those things. You have to say, I swear I don't owe you, I swear I don't owe you, I swear I don't owe you. It's not enough to say to you, nothing to you, nothing to you, nothing to you. That's a meaningless statement. I say, I swear not to you, I swear not to you, and I swear not to you, that I can do. Okay. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. So now, back into that was a brisa. So now, back into what Rabbi Yehuda says. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Klalo shel Rabbi Meir. What Rabbi Meir holds is the generality, is prato shel Rabbi Yehuda, is the individual circumstance of Rabbi Yehuda, right? So Rabbi Yehuda said, right, lo lecha, right, with the vav, lo lecha velo lecha velo lecha, right, not to you and not to you and not to you. He says that by saying and is a generality. It goes back. Why? Because you're reconnecting back to your original oath. You said, I swear I don't owe you, and I swear I don't owe you. So each one of he says by saying, what he's saying is that by saying I don't owe you and I don't owe you, I connect it all together. It really is one oath then. I swear I don't know you, and I don't know you, and I don't know you, and I don't know you. That's one statement because of all the ands. Okay? However, Kol Rabbi Yehuda, Prato Rabbi Meir, and the generality, which Rabbi Yehuda says, where he doesn't specify all the ands, that's the specific for Rabbi Meir. That's what Rabbi Meir says is the specific, because he says that I'm essentially connecting my statement of not to you, not to you, not to you, back to my original oath. That separates each one of the individual items. So therefore, he says that whether you use the vav, right? So he says that the klal of Rabbi Meir is the specific is where you use the vav, and then Rabbi Yehuda says that the generality is where I don't use the vav. Okay, so that's their argument. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan says, Hakol modim velo lecha shehu prat. He says no. If everybody says and not to you, that's going to be a specific. That's going to be that's a specific. Lo nechlaku ella below lecha. Right? Rabbi Meir Omer prat. The question is where you say lo lecha without the vav. Right, that's where Rabbi Meir says that is a separator, and Rabbi Yehuda Omer Klal, and Rabbi Yehuda says that's the generality. Ve'ezehu klolo shel Rabbi Meir. So if that's the case, what is the definition of the generality according to Rabbi Meir? Shevuos she'ein lochem biyadi. That is just the general statement. I don't owe anything. Okay, that's the detail. So, but my kamiflagi. So, what is this argument? Where's the source of this argument? We're trying to figure out who holds which statement means what. So Shmuel daik mi brisa. Shmuel takes a look at the brisa that we just had, and he reads that brisa and looks at the words very carefully and comes to his conclusion. For Rabbi Yochanan daik mi masnisin, Rabbi Yochanan looks at our Mishnah and he reads the words carefully and he comes to his conclusion. So let's read it. Shmuel daik mi brisa. Shmuel looks at our Mishnah, our brisa, and it says, Midik Amar Rabbi Yehuda velo lecha prata havi. That by the fact that it's specifying everybody's different opinion. It says, Rabbi Yehuda says, velo lecha, that's a detail. That if I say, and not to you, and not to you, that's my specific. But if I don't have the vav, that's my generality. That means that Rabbi Meir is holding exactly the opposite. Havi miklal, disham'e le Rabbi Meir, de amar klol havi. That he's saying that I heard what Rabbi Meir had to say. I say velo lecha as details, is specifying and making it separate oaths. But that means that Rabbi Meir was saying the vav connects them all and makes them all one oath together. The Amar le Rabbi Yehuda prata, and that's where Rabbi Yehuda says, "I heard what Rabbi Meir had to say, and I hold that's a detail, Avi." Now that's how Shmuel learns it. For Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan says, "No, take a look at our Mishnah. Tarvaihu le Rabbi." He understands the brisa mean Tarvaihu le Rabbi Meir prata havi. He says that according to Rabbi Meir, whether you say and or you don't say and is irrelevant. And or not and, if you're saying not to you, not to you, not to you, or not to you, and not to you, and not to you, according to the way he reads the brisa, according to Rabbi Meir, that's going to be details. The Amar le Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda is saying back to him, Bevelo lecha mudina lach. I agree if you say and not to you, and not to you, because by saying and not to you, I'm going to say and I don't know, I swear not to you, and I swear not to you, and I swear not to you. Below lecha, but if you don't put the and, so that's paligna alach. That's where I'm going to argue with you, and I think that's a generality because he didn't say and, so it's a generality. So that's where I argue. That's the difference between how they interpret the brisa. Okay. Ushmuel. Now Shmuel says ad odile aduye liflug ale iflugi. So he says. Until he admits to it, right? So then I'm going to argue with you. Meaning he has to make the statement. Shmuel says, no. Shmuel says I don't understand the brisa that way, right? Shmuel says I don't agree with you. That's not what the brisa means. That the brisa does, it means that right. What I'm going to, until I say I agree with you or I don't, it means I'm arguing with you. I didn't say I agree with you, so therefore I'm arguing. When he says I specify my opinion, it means I'm arguing with you on it. And then when the other opinion is stated, I'm saying so he holds that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir are saying exactly opposites. Now, Rabbi Yochanan daik mi masnisin. Rabbi Yochanan says, look at the Mishnah. Look what our Mishnah says. Our Mishnah says, "Midikam Rabbi Meir." Rabbi Meir makes a statement in our Mishnah. Shevuos she'ein lochem biyadi klala. He says, if I make a statement, I don't know any of you. That's the generality. Well, let's take him at his word. That's exactly what Rabbi Meir says. Any other specific statement, so Miklau, de velo lecha, that if he makes a statement, even velo lecha, that is a specific, different statement for each and every oath. Because if you held that if he was saying and, that he was trying to group everything together and make that all into one oath, kol shekain she'ein lachem biyadi, kol shekain shvua she'ein lachem biyadi, then why would the Mishnah tell us the case of when I say that a general rule is when I say, I don't owe you anything, when you could have, it would have been a bigger novelty to say, it's even general if I say not to you, and not to you, and not to you, that's all together one statement. And then for sure, if I said I don't know any of you, that for sure would be one statement. The fact that the Mishnah doesn't choose that case, only chooses the case of I don't know any of you, means that Rabbi Meir holds that if I were to specify not to you, and not to you, and not to you, that those would be separate oaths. Ushmuel Amar, to which Shmuel says, that's not the way I understand the Mishnah. Amar kol omer velo lecha ke omer shvur she'ein lechem biyadi dami. He says, I doesn't need to specify because the two things mean the same thing. If I said I don't know any of you, and I said I don't know you, and I don't know you, and I don't know you, according to Meir, that's the same statement. That's not a different statement. It's only if I say I don't know you, I don't know you, I don't know without the and, that's where it is a different statement. Okay, now. The problem is that you have to start taking a look at the text of the Mishnah. Okay, the Mishnah says, Tanan, our Mishnah says, Lo lecha velo lecha velo lecha tani. So lo lecha velo lecha velo lecha. The example that we give for Rabbi Meir, where we say that he's swearing separate oaths. So this is the case. The case is where he says, and not to you, and not to you, and not to you. Now, Shmuel, if your interpretation is correct, Rabbi Meir agrees that if he says, and not to you, and not to you, and not to you, it's all the same oath. So then why are we listing that as inaccurate? Why are we listing that as separate oaths? So the first answer is, Tani lo lecha. Change the text. You're right. Forget the vav. There must have been a mistake. The vav accidentally got into the text, and so we're just going to fix that problem. That's a little bit. We don't like to do that normally, Jeff. Don't worry. It's just that we had no choice because that should match the case. Okay, but now we go on to the next part of the Mishnah. Next part of the Mishnah says, Tashma, come listen. Tain lipi kodon. Right. Person says, give me my object back. Usasumas yad, and the loan that you have me, vegezel, and the stolen object you have of mine, vaveda, and the lost object you found. Okay, so it says and in each case. Then we said it's separate because he said and. Well, wait a second. Didn't you just tell me that if he said and, it combines them all together? So okay, well, no problem. We did it once before. Tanit sumas yad, gezel, vaveda. Just remove the vav. Fix that. We'll fix that one in the Mishnah too. Right? Just forget the vav. It means without the vav. It's the same. It's just he's. That's when it's separate without the vav. We're right. With the vav, it would be all together one oath. Baruch atah. Amen. That's very good. Okay. Look good too. Look good doing it. Okay. Toshma. Come and listen. The third case in the Mishnah says, give me back my wheat, give me back my barley, give me back my spelt. And it says and on each one. Well, if you're telling me that the word and combines them all together into one, how come the word and is there? Well, the answer is Tanis Oren Kusmin. So you're right, take the vav out. Well, 1 second. Okay, you did it once, Jeff didn't like it. You did it twice. You did it the second time. You took the vav out the second time, and Jeff says, okay, I guess this is what you guys do. You just change the text. You do it the third time, Tana kol hachi shabish. This Mishnah is really messed up. It's got a lot of typos in it. That's a little bit where you already start to get a little skeptical that the Mishnah is wrong 3 times. The Mishnah, we had to change the text 3 times. So, Tani ve'azil, right? This everything. The Mishnah's got all these mixed up, and we've got to fix the text every single time. Ella, so rather forget that, right? The answer is, your question was, how could Rabbi Meir be the one saying and according to your viewpoint? And should be a separate, and should be one big oath, not separate oaths. The answer is, Hamani Rabbi Hi. This is not Rabbi Meir's opinion at all. Generally speaking, when in a Mishnah, we have a rule of stam Mishnah to Rabbi Meir. That means that when a Mishnah doesn't specify who the author is, we presume it to be Rabbi Meir. Yeah, that's generally the case. So this didn't have an author. He didn't say who it was, so we presumed it was Rabbi Meir. But you know,
Rabbi Meir himself. You got another time.
well, because we say that if people are not disagreeing with him, then you just say we presume it's Rabbi Meir, right? Because, however, the author and the editor of the Mishnah himself is Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. So it could be that the person in the text who's talking isn't Rabbi Meir at all. Could be it's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. So that's what they're going to say. You're right. If the text that we have, it could fit if it's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's opinion, who holds that by saying "and," you are in fact separating these different statements into separate part pledges. To Amar, because he says in a completely unrelated issue, Loshna kazayis veloshna kazayis vikazayis pratahavi. He holds that, let's say, we're going to have a introduction to a rule that we'll need when we get into korbanos, something called pigul. Pigul is that pigul. Yes, pigul. Pigul is a invalidation of a sacrifice that comes about when the person who's offering the sacrifice, the Kohen, has in mind that he's going to eat this sacrifice beyond the specified appropriate time. Okay? So just by thinking that, as he's offering the sacrifice, he invalidates it. Now the rule is, with pigul, is that if it is invalidated for any other reason, if it's invalidated for any other reason, so then it's not pigul. Okay? So now, this Kohen has in mind the following. I'm going to eat this kazayas beyond the right amount of time. Then I'm going to eat this kazayas beyond the right of time. Each time, since it's still a kosher sacrifice, each time he has that thought, he's in violation again of the Aveira. Now, says Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, it doesn't matter whether the Kohen's intention was this kazayas, or this kazayas, and this kazayas. Each one of those is a delimiting indicator that it means a separate kazayas. And so therefore you see it's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's opinion that vav or no vav does not matter. It's considered separate statements. And that's who our Mishnah goes like, that specifies that, and I don't know you, and I don't know you, and the lost item, and the loan, and it separates. Okay, so now, Toshma midi day. Now, we learn in a brisa, okay, from the opinion himself, midi day, right, that Rabbi Meir himself learned in the Mishnah. There is a line in the Mishnah we know is Rabbi Meir's line because it says Rabbi Meir Omer. Rabbi Meir says, "Afilu chita usaora v'kusemes chayev." Even if he says, this was where the part where he said, even the person says, you have a wheat, you have a barley, you have a spelt, and he says, even if he says, I have a wheat, I have a barley, I have a spelt, he's chayev al kol achas v'achas. He's liable for every single one. Now our problem, doesn't it have a vav there? It combines them all together. And Rabbi Meir said if you have the vav, it combines them all together. It's one oath. So the answer is, Tni chita se'ora v'kusemes. Take the vav out. Now, I know you're going to tell me that's the fourth time. The answer is it's not, because we went back and we reversed that. The first times we left it as it was, because that was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's opinion. This is really the one correction we're making. We're taking the vav out this one time. Okay, Jeff can be skeptical, but we'll let it go. Okay, we'll let you. Now, my afilu, the question is, what is the statement then of afilu? Afilu means even in this case. Well, if what you're saying is all of the previous cases of and this case, and this case, and this case, was all Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's opinion, this is the first time we're quoting Rabbi Meir. So what do you mean even? Rabbi Meir says this is his opinion, he's a separate guy, and he says something different. So it's not afilu, it's not even, it's his opinion the first time. Some Rav Acha Breder Ravika. So Rav Acha Breder Ravika is explaining afilu chita bechlal chitin usar bechlal saorim v'kusemes bechlal kusmin. The issue that Rabbi Meir is addressing has nothing to do with just the issue. It's not just the issue of separating vows. The issue is like this: the guy came along and said to him, "You owe me a wheat, you owe me a barley, you owe me a spelt," and the guy answers, "I don't owe you a barley, I don't owe you." Now, what does he mean by I don't owe you a barley, I don't owe you a spelt? If he says I don't owe you, if he responds back, I don't owe you wheat, is he saying that you're right, I don't owe you a wheat, I owe you many wheats or something like that? So basically, right? So the answer is the phrase a wheat or a barley means the species of wheat and barley. Doesn't mean one kernel. It means the entire, and therefore you still be chayav. That's the point that Rabbi Meir is making, that you'd still be liable, right? You're still liable, and because you are swearing that you're denying any involvement. Because the issue also is that the oath is relating to less than a pruta's worth. Remember that we needed to have a small monetary amount in order for this oath to have legitimate financial consequence. So therefore, if all I'm denying is 1 grain of wheat, 1 grain of barley, then that's nothing. So the answer is no. When you deny a wheat, when you deny a barley, you are denying something of financial consequence, all wheat and barley. Okay. Now, that one was a little technical. Give me the item that you have, my item that you have in your possession, and it could be a security deposit, it could be a loan, it could be a stolen object, it could be a lost object, right? So now, let's say he says, "Tain li chitin usaorin," give me back the wheat and barley. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan says, "Pruta mikula mitzterefes," right? That a pruta, if somebody makes the statement, you have wheat and barley. Let's say he has half of a pruta's worth of wheat and half a pruta's worth of barley. Is the statement you have wheat and barley, is that one request or is that 2 requests? Am I accusing you of having wheat and having barley? If it's 2 requests, each request is half of a pruta. So therefore each request is nothing. But if I can combine the 2 requests together and I say half a pruta of wheat and half a pruta of barley, and that all combines together, so now it has significance, has financial significance, and so therefore I am going to, so Rabbi Yochanan says, if I have in total a pruta amongst all of the grains, so then it combines. So pligi ba Rav Acha v'Ravina. So that's an argument between Rav Acha and Ravina. Chad Amar, afarti mechayev aklali lo mechayev. One says what Rabbi Yochanan means is that you are liable on each individual item, but not the general. V'chad amar aklali nami mechayev. And the other one says that the general also, he's not, he's chayev. Meaning, when a person makes an oath and he's got half of this, right? Or if I have 1 pruta of this type and I have 1 pruta of this type, do I and I swear that I don't owe anything? Am I violating an oath for the barley, an oath for the wheat, and a 3rd oath for the combined total? Right? That's the issue. Because if I hold that wheat and barley is one combined thing, that I can combine the amounts together, then really there's 3 different oaths here, right? The barley, the wheat, and also not barley and wheat. Okay, so that's the issue that they're arguing about. That's Rav Acha and Ravina. V'hatani Rabbi Chia. Now, 1 second. Rabbi Chia said, "Harekan chamesh esrei chatos." Let's say a person says, right, to 5 people. 5 people accuse him, and they say, "You have wheat, you have barley, you have spelt." Okay, you have wheat, barley, and spelt. So that's 3 different denials: wheat, barley, spelt. Right? 5 people are accusing him of it, and he takes an oath to each individual grain, to each individual person. How many sin offerings does he have? 15, right? 3 times the 5. Now, V'im Isa, if what you're saying is true, that there's a general combination as well prohibition. So when I deny wheat, barley, and spelt, how many denials is that? It's 4. 1 for the wheat, 1 for the barley, 1 for the spelt, and 1 for the combined for all of them. So if you're 4 and you're denying it to 5 people, so then Esrim Havyon, there should be 20 sin offerings that he's bringing, or guilt offerings that he's bringing, right? So Haitana de prati kachoshev de klali lo kachoshev. So he said, well, this opinion in that brisa is the opinion that holds that you don't count that extra generality, right? When you say wheat, barley, and that was the argument, right? Wheat, barley, and spelt, it's only 3, it's not 4. V'hatani Reb Chia harekan esrim chatos. Then how are you going to explain another brisa that says Reb Chia says that there are 20? So the answer is hahi apikodon usesumas yad v'gezel aveda. That 20 is going on the next case where the person denies not the barley, the spelt, and the wheat, but he denies the security deposit, the loan, the stolen item, and the lost object. So he's denying 4 individual things to 5 people. That's why there's 20. But this price is not presuming that there's a general prohibition as well. Okay. Rava Nachman. Rava asked Rav Nachman the whole question. Hayu chamisha tovin oso. Let's say there are 5 guys that are saying, you owe me. Va'amru lo, and they say to him, Tein lanu pikodon tesumas yad v'gezel aveda. Give us back our security deposit. Give us back our loan, our stolen item, and our lost object. And 5 guys tell him that. Sheyesh lanu biyadcha. You have all of those things you have all of our things in your possession. Amar le'echad mehen, and he says to one of the guys. This is how he phrases it. This is the question. He says to one of the guys, Shevuos she'ein lecha biyadi pikodon tesumas yad gezel v'aveda. He says to guy number 1, I don't have your security deposit, I don't have your loan, I don't have your stolen item, and I don't have your lost object. So he denies all 4 things to this guy. Then he turns to the next guy and he says, V'lo lecha, and also not to you, and not to you, v'lo lecha, all to all 5 guys. So now, he only specified all 4 denials to the first guy, and then he said, and same to you, and same to you, and same to you, and same to you. The question is, it's a copy-paste function or not? Am I copy-pasting the 4 denials from the first guy and 4 denials to you, and 4 denials to you, 4 denials to you? Or is essentially it's 4 denials to you, 1 denial to you, 1 denial to you, 1 denial to you, 1 denial to you? You hear the question? Right? Good question, right? Good question. Mahu, so what is the law? Achada mechayev, is he, for these subsequent denials, is he liable only 1? Lamed chasam beis. Oh, Dilma, akol chada v'chada mechayev. He's going to be liable for each individual one. He basically is copying and pasting 4, 4, 4, 4, 4 into each one. So Toshma, so come and listen. The Tani Rabbi Chia says, Harei kanes rim chatos. In a circumstance where he denies, he's going to be responsible for 20 different offerings. So now, hey chidami, what's the case there? Ida parish, if he specified, he said, I don't owe you the 4 things, and then he specified all 4 things. Then he went to the next guy, and I also don't owe you each of the 4 things. And then he went to each guy and specified the 4 things. So Rabbi Chia minyana also hashmina. What's Rabbi Chia's job is to count? I mean, if you literally denied 20 different specific denials, what's the purpose? Rabbi Chia is just counting? I mean, we get it. Ella lav de lo parish. Rather, this case is exactly what our case is. Rabbi Chia is telling us he didn't specify. He specified it for the first guy, and then he said, and not to you, and not to you, and not to you. Ushmamina pratahavi, and therefore you see from this brisa that it's going to be 20 guilt offerings because we do copy and paste from each one. Once he specified it to the first guy, then he says, and same to you, and same to you. He's denying 4 denials to each guy. Okay, next. Anasta upitisa is biti. Guy says to him, you rape and you seduce my daughter, so now you're liable to give me the knas, the payment, the penalty, what do you call it? The knas, the fine payment. Okay. Now we said that the fine payment, right? A fine, since the person, if he were to admit, remember, they're saying you need to admit that you did it. Well, if he says I admit I did it, well then he's not. Right? By definition, you are modeh b'knas. Person admits that he does something, he's not going to pay. Okay? So now, when he swears that he didn't do it, is he in violation or not? So, Amr Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amr Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Chia bar Abba said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, my time of the Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Shimon, what is the reason why Rabbi Shimon says you are liable? Hov ikr knasu toveya. I'm sorry, why does Rabbi Shimon say you're not liable? The answer is hov ikr knasu toveya. The main thing of when a person comes up to you and says, you assaulted my daughter, right? You owe me the money. So what he's doing is he's saying the main thing on his mind is you owe me the 50 shekel penalty. That's the main thing.
And then I'm going to kill you.
Well, then you're also going to have to pay. You're going to also have to pay all of the other all the other payments that are associated, medical bills, pain and suffering, embarrassment, all of those things also. But he's not thinking about that. That's Rabbi Shimon's point. When he comes to make you take that oath, he's not thinking about all those other additional payments. Okay? Amar Rava says, Mashal de Rabbi Shimon limad davar doma. Rabbi Shimon says, I'll explain to you what this is like. Tell you why Rabbi Shimon thinks that way. It's domel adam she'amar lechaver. Imagine a guy says to his friend, Tein li chitin surin v'kosmin sheyesh li biyadcha. He says, give me the wheat, the barley, and the spelt that you have of mine in your possession. Amar lo. So the friend says, Shevuos ein lecha biyadi chitin. The guy says, I don't have any of your wheat. Okay. The ashtekach dechitin who delays lay. Turns out the guy doesn't have wheat, but has or vekusman islay. But he does have barley and he does have spelt depater, right? Then he'd be not liable for lying. Why? Dechi ishtava achitin akushta mishtava. Because when he swore he didn't have the wheat, that was true. Right? So even though the claim was you don't have wheat, barley, or spelt, he only swore to the wheat. Right. So that's why that is what Rabbi Shimon was saying. When the guy comes and says, you assaulted my daughter, you owe me the knas. When the guy says, I don't owe you the knas, okay. So since there's no financial penalty that you're going to be liable for, so then, okay, what about the other payments? That's not what he's thinking of. So he's not thinking of those. That's why he didn't lie. When he said, I swear I didn't, he's referring to the knas in his mind. So therefore, the other penalties, the fact that he's chayav the other penalties, are not relevant. Amar le Abaye. Abaye says, what are you talking about? Me dummy? That's not comparable. That's not how the case is. Hasan bechitin kakafar le, besaron v'kusmin lo kakafar le. That when he denied the wheat, but he said nothing about the barley and he said nothing about the spelt. Hacha, but here where the guy says, I didn't assault your daughter, then bekula milzahu de kakafar, he's denying everything. He's not just denying the fine. He's denying the doctor penalty. He's denying the embarrassment. He's denying the damages. He's denying all of it. Ha lodomya, so I'll tell you what this case is really like. It's really like El Omer Lechaver. Somebody says to his friend, "Tain li chitin v'soron v'kosman sheyesh li biyadcha." Give me the wheat, the barley, and the spelt that you have that I have in your possession. Shevuos she'ein lecha biyadi klal, and he takes an oath and says, "I don't have any of it." V'eshtaka chitin. So then he finds the wheat, and he finds out that chitin who delays he doesn't have wheat, but hasaorin v'kusman islay, but he does have the barley and the spelt. Then to Mechayev, he'd be liable because he lied. He said, I don't have anything, but you do. You might not have had all of the things that I thought you had, but you have something and you denied it all. So therefore, why is this person who claims to not have assaulted the daughter not liable? He lied.
How do we get from wheat, barley, and spelt to you seduced my daughter? Like
financial obligations. These are different reasons why somebody should owe somebody money. Right? A person owes money because you have my grain. Person owes money because you damaged my daughter. You owe me money now. There's a financial penalty. You have to pay for the bills.
They're two very different situations.
They are, but the similarity between them is that there's a financial consequence, right? And the financial consequence is what you're going to be liable for the oath for. That's why they're similar. Okay. So now rather ki also Rabin, when Rabin came from Israel, he explained it like this. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. L'divrei Rabbi Shimon, according to Rabbi Shimon, knasu tovei v'lo boshes pegam. What Rabbi Shimon is saying is that when a person says to another person, you seduced or raped my daughter, so then he's only seeking the knas penalty. He's not even telling him that you owe me the doctor bills and the pain and the suffering, all those things. He's not even requesting that. And l'divrei chachamim, and the chachamim are disagreeing, and they're saying af boshes pegam hu toveya. He is demanding all of the payment, and that's what the difference of opinion is as to whether you're in violation of the oath or not. But my committee, what is the point of their argument? Why would you say one way or the other? Amar Rav Papa says Reb Shimon Savar. Reb Shimon holds lo shavik inish midi de kits v'tava midi de lo kits. But Reb Shimon says that when somebody owes somebody money, right, you don't go after the thing that isn't well defined. You go after the thing that is very well clearly defined. What do I mean? Right? If somebody owes $20 plus he owes me the value of a couple of baseball cards that he ruined, so I'll say to him, you owe me the $20. Why? Because the baseball cards, I got to go figure out what they're worth. I don't know what they're worth. I got to go look it up somewhere and figure out what therefore, I'm going after the item that has a set amount, not after the other things. So therefore, when he claims you assaulted my daughter, he's really only going after the 50 shekel because the Torah says that's the specific amount. The doctor bills, we got to go to a doctor. We got to evaluate the embarrassment. We got to go and figure out. We got to get the court together and figure out what that money is. The Rabbanan Safri, the Rabbanan disagree. They say lo shavik midi dechimoda be lo mifter v'tava midi dechimoda be mifter. He says that nobody is going to demand the knas penalty because if the guy goes to Beis Din and admits it, you're getting nothing. So it's worthless to get him to admit to the knas. Get him to admit to the doctor bills. Get him to admit to the embarrassment. Then he's going to have to pay. So that's what is the main issue, and that is the subject of their argument. Okay, next Mishnah. Shevuos hadayanin. Next type of oath that we're going to talk about is the oath. This is actually nice. This is a nice change of pace for about a page or so. Okay, I'm not going to go into just the details or whatever, but we have to go into a little how-to. Somebody takes an oath, so they go to court, and the judges are making you take an oath now. You're liable. So what is the Shevuos Dayanan? What is the oaths that the judges assign? So hatano shtei kesef v'hodah b'shava pruta. Somebody says you owe me 2 silver coins. And the other guy admits that he owes a pruta, small amount. So he is, this is what we call moda b'mikta satayna. He's admitting to only part of the claim. If he denies the claim outright, we're going to see in the Mishnah, if he denies outright, so then there's no oath. Right? Why? Because we're going to see in the Gemara, we have what's called ein adam meiz bifnei chavero. If somebody did me a favor and loaned me money, I would not have the chutzpah to look him in the eye and say, there was no loan. I wouldn't have that chutzpah. We have that rule. So therefore, if a person is denying it, he has a certain amount of credibility. We don't need him to take an oath. However, what could a person do? A person say, you owe me $1,000. The guy say, what? It was only $500. Now, why am I doing that? I intend to pay you back. I just don't have the money. I only have $500 with me. So therefore, I say it was only $500. Why? So I give you the $500 and I'll pay you the rest now. But since in my mind, I'm not planning to cheat you, I would lie. So in that circumstance, the Chachamim say, since you're liable, you're potentially that a person might lie, the Torah says you must swear that you're not lying. Okay? We are going to shorten this type of oath. We call it moda b'miktas, right? Admitting part of the claim. Now, so one guy says 2 silver coins, the other guy says a pruto, which is a small copper coin, right? If the thing that you're denying is not what was being asked of you, then it's not the same thing, right? Guy says, you owe me $200. And the guy that says, no, I only owe you an egg. Not the same thing. I'm denying the $200. The egg is a completely different thing. It's not connected. Ketzad, how does that work? Shtei kesef yesh li biyadcha. Person says, you have 2 silver coins in of mine in your possession. Ein lecha biyadi ela pruta. And he says, I only have a pruta. So then he's putter. So then he's exempt. Why? We're going to see. Because in this case he's saying, I have 2 silver, but not coins. I have 2 pieces of silver. You owe me 2 pieces of silver. The other guy says, no, it's a pruta, which means copper. You asked for silver, I told you copper. That's not the same thing. But he says, shtei kesef u pruta li biyadcha. If he says, you owe me 2 silver and a copper coin, ein lecha biyadi ela pruta, and he says, no, I only owe you the copper coin, then chayev, then you admitted to part of what he asked for. So then you are liable. Mana li biyadcha. So a person says, you owe me 100, ein lecha biyadi, and he says, I deny the whole thing. Then he's exempt. He's putter, as we said. Then he's exempt. Mana lebiyadcha, he says, you owe me 100. Ein lecha biyadi ela chamishin. The other guy says, no, it's only 50 dinar. Then he's chayev. Then he's liable because he admitted to part of it. Mana li abba biyadcha. He says, my father, right? You owed my father money. 100. Ein lecha biyadi ela nun dinar. And the other guy says, no, it's only 50. Then he's putter, he's exempt. Now he's admitting to part of the claim. Why is he exempt? The answer is mipnei shehu k'meshiv aveda, because a person doesn't know what happened with his father. The guy may have paid his father back. So if this guy had denied it, then he wouldn't have had to pay. So the fact that he's admitting to 50 is just like he's returning a lost item. So therefore, he doesn't have to take an oath. Manali biyadcha, right? Next case is, some person says, you owe me 100. Amar lo, hain. The guy says, yep, I do. You're right. They're in court, and he says, yes, I do. Lamachar, so then they come to court the next day, and he says, Amar lo, Tanuli, he says, okay, give me the 100. So he says, Nisativlach, I gave it to you yesterday.
Liar.
So now he's putter, he's exempt, right? Because that is valid. He's not being inconsistent, right? You said I owed it, I said, yes, I gave it to you. However, if he denies it, he goes to court the next day and he says, what are you talking about? What loan? Now he's liable. He has to pay. Why? Because yesterday he admitted in court that he does owe it. Now he's saying he doesn't. He can't be. Both of those things can't be true. He's liable. Mana li biyadcha, person says, you owe me 100. Amar lo, he said to him, Hain, you're right. Okay? And the guy says, Al titnu li ela be'edim. I'm smart this time. Don't pay me back unless there are witnesses. I don't want you giving me the money. The guy says, no, I'll give it to you right now. No. Wait until there are witnesses to see it. Lamachar comes to court the next day. Amar lo tenuli. He says, okay, now pay me. There are witnesses here. And then he says, Nisativlach, I paid you already. Chayev. That's not going to work. Why? He's still liable to pay. Why? Because everybody witnessed. He can tell him, you have to pay me back with witnesses. So therefore, the person shouldn't have been able to give it back to him. Now the claim that he says, you gave it back to me doesn't work because he wouldn't have given it back. He wouldn't have accepted it without the witnesses. So therefore, you can't, then now he's liable. Next case, litra zahav. Litra is a weight of gold, right? Yesh li biyadcha, you have of mine. Ein lecha biyadi ela litra kasef. And the guy says, no, I have the same amount, but silver. That's an exempt. He's exempt. Potter, no oath there because he said gold, you said silver. That's not the same. Dinar zahav yesh li biyadcha. Person says, you have a gold dinar. And he says, biyadcha ein lechi biyadi ela dinar kasef. And the guy says, no, it's a silver dinar. Utrisis, upundius, so these are other types of coins. Upruta chayiv. Then he is liable. Why? Shakol min matbea achas. It's all the same currency. It's like one guy saying, you owe me a $20 bill. And you say, no, it's only a loonie. Right? Well, one's paper, one's it. No, it's money, it's currency. So since it's currency, it's all the same type. And that he would be liable for. Kor tvua li biyadcha. You owe me a kor, which is a measurement of volume of wheat. Ein lecha biyadi ela lesech. And he says, lesech kitnis. He says, I don't owe you anything. I owe you half that measurement, and it's beans, legumes. Okay? He's exempt, potter, because you said grain, I said legumes, different things. But kor peiros li biyadcha. He says, you have a core of my produce. Okay, now he says, I don't owe you that. I owe you half of that in legumes. Then he's chayav. Now he's liable. Why? Because she'akitnios bechal peros. Because legumes are produce. That counts. You said produce. I said legumes. I'm admitting it. Tanu chitin. Right. The guy said wheat. You owe me wheat. V'hodelo b'sorim. And he says no. It's barley. Potter. He's exempt because he didn't admit to the same thing. For Rabbi Gamliel, mechayev, and Rabbi Gamliel is going to say, nope, he's liable because he does not agree with all of what we said up until this point. He says, even if you admit and it's not the same type of item, that's still going to require you to take an oath. That's Rabbi Gamliel's opinion. Hatoin lechavero bekade shemen. Person says, you owe me jars of oil. Now, the practice was that a person would sell the jars of oil, right? And then you'd have at the end an empty jar of oil, right? And the empty container. You got to keep those, right? So that you could use it to store your stuff in, right? Right? Just like you go to the store, you buy the coffee cans, right? There used to be coffee cans. Coffee cans, you could store all kinds of great stuff in the coffee can. Make a drum out of it for your kids. Great stuff, okay? So, the person says, you owe me containers of oil. V'hodelo bekankanim. And he says, no, I only have empty containers, right? That's all it is. So Admon Omer, Admon says, Ho v'hodulo miktsas mimina taina yishava. He says, look, that's basically part of what he claimed. He said it was containers of oil, and you admitted to the containers. So therefore, he should pay. The Chachamim say, Ein ho dam mina taina. That's not the request. He was requesting the oil. You're right, they come in containers, but that isn't the main thing of what the request was. Therefore, he should not have to swear. Amar Gamliel to Rishon Gamliel says, who himself says he would have to swear anyway, but he says, Ro'ani es divrei Admon. I like Admon's logic. Admon makes sense to me here, even though I would hold you required to swear anyway. But Admon seems right here. Tanu Kalim Vikarkos. Now, we have a rule, we sort of touched on it in the past, we were rushing through things, but we touched on the idea that when it comes to land, we don't take oaths on land. So let's say a person says, utensils and land, you owe me utensils and land. Vahoda Bekalim, and he says, no, I owe you utensils. Kafar, Vikafar, Bikarkos, and he says, not the land. Bikarkos, Vikafar, Bekalim, or the reverse. He says, I owe you the land, but not the utensils. Potter, either way, he doesn't take an oath, because as long as the claim has land in it, land is exempt from oaths. So therefore, as long as what the request is land, that doesn't work. Now, here's what you do. Hodu b'miktsas hakarkos. And if he says, you owe me a big piece of land, and the other guy says, no, a small piece of land, potter, you're exempt also. B'miktsas hakelim chayiv. However, if he says, I admit that I owe you some of the utensils, right? Now that he can be liable for. And not only that, but once he admits to part of the utensils, not only can you make him swear about the utensils, you can even make him swear about the land as well. Why? Because the rule is, once the oath is triggered, you can throw other things into it also. Other things that you wouldn't need to take an oath about. As long as you've got him swearing anyway, nothing to lose. Throw other things into the oath as well. So lishaval to make them swear. Now, next, if a person who is a deaf mute, a incompetent person, or a child comes into court making a claim, so nobody swears based on their claim, right? So they say if a child walks in the court and says, "You owe me $100," and the guy says 50, there's no oath there, right? Because we don't consider these people legally competent enough to make a demand in court. Ve'ein mashbi'in es hakoton, and you don't make a child take an oath, right? If he has to deny something, you don't make a child take an oath because he is not competent enough to be able to take that oath. Aval nishboin lekoton ulehektish. However, what you do is, let's say a child inherits something from his father, and you don't. So now somebody comes along and says, "But the father owed me money first." So now, in order to protect the child, we make that person who's making the claim take an oath that he never got the money. That we will do for the benefit of the child, even though the child's not making the claim, but we do that on behalf. Same thing is when somebody has an item that is owed to him, and then the person who, instead of paying him back, gives it to the Beis HaMikdash. Well, since he had a claim on it first, he has the right to collect it from the Beis HaMikdash, but in order to protect the Beis HaMikdash, we make the person take an oath as well to be able to say that it was not. Okay, so let's try to get to the turn of the page at least for today. And we said the Gemara is like this. This is not so bad because this is now we're going into just like what happened. Here's the process. What is the process for this oath? Okay, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav, Rabbi Yosef and Rav. Mashbi'in also b'shvua ha'amura b'Torah. We are going to make him take the oath just as it's written in the Torah. Dichsiv, the Torah says, Vashbiacha b'Hashem Elokei Hashemayim. Right, person is going to be is going to. I made him swear by Hashem, this by Avram Avinu tells Eliezer he's going to go to get a son, a wife for his son Yitzchak. He says, "I am making you swear by the God in heaven." Okay, and he made him put his hand on his inner thigh as well. That's going to be part of the important part of that. Why? Because that was the location of his bris milah. They didn't have They didn't have a Sefer Torah back then. They didn't have any holy objects back then. The only object of mitzvah, Avram was only given that one mitzvah. So therefore, his bris milah was the only object of mitzvah that had kedusha to it that they could use as a holy object. So now, Amarli Ravina l'Ravashi. So Ravina says to Ravashi, Kiman, who's this like? Rabbi Chanina bar Idi, sounds like Rabbi Chanina bar Idi, da Amar ba'inan shem hamyuchad, that Avram Avinu used the name of Hashem here. He said Hashem Elokei Hashemayim, right? But he didn't say Rachom, Chanun, any of those other nicknames. So that sounds like this is Rabbi Chanina bar Idi's opinion that you actually have to use the name of Hashem. Amar Le, he said, no, afilu tim rabbanan, even the rabbanan would agree to Amri b'Kinuye, who say that you can use the nicknames. It doesn't have to be El Hashem Elokei. The Chachamim had held that you can use the other names of Hashem as well. V'nafka mina, the other thing that comes out from the fact that we're learning it from Avram Avinu is that tzarich le'atpushe chefetz b'yadei. You need a holy object to be holding in your hand when you take the oath, like a Sefer Torah, right? Like something holy.
Right, a chumash.
So that's the question. We're going to see what kinds of things they don't like to use, and we'll see that why. Sefer Torah, definitely. We'll say that.
Okay.
So now, ukid Rava, like Rava says, Dama Rava says, Hai daina de ashba b'Hashem Elokei Hashemayim nasa kemisha ta'a b'davar mishnah. If somebody makes the person take an oath of judges, and only does this, he makes him say the oath, but he doesn't hold anything in his hand, the guy's making the most elementary mistake on a basic level. Obviously, you have to hold something, right? V'chozer. And now the oath that he has to go back, that doesn't count. Rav Papa says, Hai daina de ashba b'tfilin. If somebody uses a pair of tefillin, this is why I'm not sure about the chumash, right? If somebody says, here's a whole pair of tefillin, nas kamisha tavar b'dvar mishnah v'chozer, that does not work. Not holy enough, the pair of tefillin.
No.
That's what he says. But the halacha is kavase de Rava. The halacha is like Rava, which means you have to hold something. The leis hilchasa kavase de Rav Papa, but the halacha is not like Rav Papa, right? Meaning hilchasa kavase de Rava. The halacha is like Rava. Dehalo nakat chefza biyadei, right? That he didn't hold anything in his hand, so then that doesn't work. But the leis hilchasa kavase de Rav Papa. The halacha is not like Rav Papa. Dehalo nakat chefza biyadei, because he was holding the tefillin in his hand. That does work. So now, what about a sefer? What about chumash? Sounds like it would work, right? I'm not sure. Tefillin seems to be more holy than a chumash, so I'm not 100%. I'd look up and see what the halacha l'maisa is practically.
Then aside from a Sefer Torah, then what else?
A mezuzah, tefillin, objects.
The chumash has the words of God.
I would imagine so. Right? You wouldn't. It's holy in that you wouldn't take it into a bathroom with you.
Right.
Things like that. Right? What about a sitter? I don't know.
Talit?
Talit, right? These are all different levels. So I'd have to take a look into it and see a little bit as to where there's a line drawn here. Rav Papa drew it too strict. We will allow tefillin. I don't know how much further we go up past tefillin.
Right. So is this a source for in courts of law where people are obligated to put their hand on
People
a
swear
Bible?
in the United States, right? When you swear people into office, they put their hand on the Bible,
President.
right?
Yeah.
That's how they do it, right? They put their hand on the Bible. This is where it comes from, right? From the pasuk, they do not know that's why they are doing it. I'm sure. Why? Because they learned it from Avram Avinu, who took it. Right? They don't know that.
Everything comes from the Jews. Huh?
That's correct. Shavua me'umad, right? You take the oath standing up. But a Talmid Chacham could take it while he's sitting down, as a deference to him. Shavua b'Sefer Torah, we take the oath using a Sefer Torah. Talmid Chacham lechatchila, but tefillin, and a Talmid Chacham, we can give him a little bit more leeway, and he can use tefillin. Okay. Tana Rabbanan Rabbeinu. Shavuos Dayanin, when it comes to the oaths of judges, I felt, Jeff, you're going to like this Gemara. Okay? You're going to like this one, okay? Tana Rabbanan Shavuos Dayanin, the oath of judges, af hi bilashona nemra. You can say it in any language. It doesn't have to be said in Hebrew. Okay? Omrim lo, we say to him, Havi Yodea, we also say to him, Havi Yodea, Shekol Ha'olam Kulo Nizdazeya. You tell him, you give him a warning. You say to him, you should understand that the whole world shook. When Hashem came in Har Sinai, on Mount Sinai, and he said, Lo sisa Hashem Hashem Elokecha l'shav, you cannot take Hashem's name in vain. The whole world shook. V'kol haveira shebatorah nemar behen v'nakeh. And all of the laws in the Torah that says that Hashem can give you tshuva and you can be cleansed. V'kan nemar lo yinakeh. But here, by taking a false oath using Hashem, you cannot be clean. You cannot be cleansed. V'kol haveira shebatorah nifra mimenu. And when it comes to other averos, you get punished. V'kan mimenu umimishpachto. And here, if you're lying, you get punished and your family gets punished. Shenamar al titenis picha lachti es besarcha. Right? Don't make your mouth sin against your flesh. Vein besaro el krovo. His flesh means his family. Shenamar pasuk says umi besarcha lo sis alem. V'kol averos b'Torah nifron mimenu. Right? And all averos of the Torah, you get punished for them. V'kan mimenu mikol ha'olam kulo. Here, the whole world gets punished if you lie. This is how they're trying to make sure he takes it seriously. Shenamar pasuk says, Allah v'kichosh. Right, that he swears and he contradicts. Now ve'ema ad de'avalahu lekulu. Now that pasuk then lists all these terrible tragedies that happen. Now one of those lists in the list is to swear falsely, right? But there is a list of averos that you have to do. Lying is one, is the taking Hashem's name in vain, murder, thievery, adultery. So maybe in order to hurt the whole world, you have to do all of those averos, not just one of them. So lo salka daitach, that's not true. Dichsiv, because the pasuk says, mipnei Allah, because of an oath, avla haaretz, the world was in mourning. Uksiv, the pasuk says, al kain tova haaretz, because the land became in mourning. Ve'umlal kol yoshev ba, and there was a sadness on all of those that dwell in it. The kol averos shebatorah, all the averos in the Torah, im yesh lo zechus, if you have a merit. Hashem won't punish you for 2 or 3 generations, right? You can have it held off, and you can do tshuva. The kan, but with lying, you get punished immediately. Shnamar pasuk says, "Hotzesiha neum Hashem tzvakos uba el beis haganav." Right, that they're going to take. Hashem says, take him out after he swears, and the curse is going to go from there, and it's going to go into the house of the thief. Ve'el beis hanishba. Bishmi l'shaker, and into the house of the one who swears by my name falsely. V'lana b'toch beso, and it's going to dwell in his house. This curse is going to dwell in his house. V'kalaso, v'es etzav, v'es avanov, and it's going to rot out the bricks and the wood of his house. It's going to destroy everything that he has. So hotzosiyah, take him out, means la'alter immediately. Ubal beis haganav, it's going to go into the house of the thief. Zeh hagonev das abrios, doesn't mean a regular thief, because this is too big a punishment for that. This is somebody who lies to people. She'en lo mamon etzo chavero v'toano umash bio. Right, that he lies to people and he says he doesn't have money by his friend, and his friend is saying, you owe me money, and he's lying. Vel base hanishba bishmi l'shaker, and to the house of the person who swore my name falsely. Kimashmo, that's like it says, right? He lied, and now he's swearing falsely. Vilana betok beso kalas vikalaso ves etzasa ves avanav halimadita. So this idea that the curse is going to go into his house and it's going to rot his stones and his wood tells us dvarm she'ein eshu mayim mechalinosan. Things that fire and water can't destroy, Shevuos sheker mechalosan. A lie can destroy those things, right? You're going to get really punished. Im amar eini nishba potrin oso miyad. Okay, so now if the person says, "I don't want to swear," right? He's supposed to take an oath. He says, "I don't want to." Let's stop here. I was going to try to get to the part that Jeff really likes, but I'll get to it after. We'll get to it tomorrow night. Okay, we'll stop here in London. Now,